Welcome, guys. We are back for another one of those videos where we put Barry Carter through his paces. He's very kindly picked out a few hands from the majors on Unibet. They're the Sunday bigger buy-in tournaments. And yeah, I suppose it's not going to be one of those videos where we take him through one tournament. It's going to be a video where he's plucked out the hands that I guess gave him the most trouble. The overall thematic will be exploitative poker. We often view the player pool at Unibet as one which, you know, probably serves as well to take exploitative lines most of the time. But, you know, we'll also talk about the GTO sort of line and then maybe how we exploit from it. Dara O'Carney is here as usual. Dara, welcome.
Thank you very much, David.
And Barry, thank you for bringing these to us.
No, thank you. I'm not sure if there's an overarching theme with this. Some of the hands I think I played okay. Some of them I was really troubled with. I guess the main kind of theme is that I'm going through a very frustrating break-even period at the moment. I suppose break-even is better than downswing, of course, and I'm not too sure what I'm doing wrong at the moment. So I'm hoping I get some pointers at the end of this. I feel like what I've picked out is a snapshot of some of the trickier decisions I'm facing at the moment. But it's one of those things like what I don't know. I might be missing something obvious in a hand that I haven't picked out. But we can see just work with what we've got.
Well, before you actually jump into this hand, which I see obviously we're going to start off with the pocket kings. Dara, Barry mentioned there the idea of a break-even spell. You know, we're sort of used to every kind of streak in poker. The downswings feel absolutely rubbish. The upswings feel great. When the wind's at your back, you kind of feel like you can maybe play a little higher. And also maybe from an execution point of view, a clarity of thought sometimes comes with that feeling of invincibility too. You can tip over the scales into sort of winner's tilt as well and play a bit too loose and a bit too fanciful. But as long as you're not doing that, it's obviously good. But that other period, that other kind of streak you can have is the break-even streak. And it is frustrating in its own way, right?
It's very frustrating because you can just feel it like there's no point to it. I know a lot of people who say they prefer the pain of the downswing to the just numbness of the side swing that just goes on and feels like everything is pointless. Like you spent your last 6 months playing poker and you've broken even basically. Like the important thing is just obviously always to just kind of divorce the results from how you feel and just focus on the process. But you know, you're right, there's all these sort of mental problems and adjustments people can make, whether they're running good, whether they're running bad. Poker finds all these ways to test you. You know, if only there was a book to explain like you know, things like winner's tilt and entitlement tilt.
I think we've already established that if you co-author a book
game poker, right, Barry? That's the one I've heard about.
I think we've already established that if you co-author a book on a subject, it certainly doesn't make you an expert on it. As I am now 8 books in and still wondering how the hell I should play in a €25 tournament.
Well, let's do that very thing now, Barry. Show us how you play these kings.
So if I remember rightly, this is a hand I felt like I played quite well. So first of all, this is exploitative line. I've raised a little bit smaller than I normally would in this particular position, but I felt that I would get away with that at this table at these stakes. So before we even continue, like, do you go bigger? What do you think?
I'll go first on this one. I probably choose a virtually identical size in position, to be honest. There is a tendency when you're kind of early position against early position to go larger with your sizings because it's probably more likely to be value versus value. But even though this is under the gun one, it's also low jack, high jack. So it's not really early position either. So actually, I probably choose an identical size.
Okay.
Yeah, same for me. I don't... This size seems fine. If the stacks behind were shallower, it being in PKO, I might even flat just to try. And
I'd be flat. I would definitely be flatting if they were shallower.
Yeah,
I'm always looking for excuses to flat in spots like this. So I'm with you on that.
I did a session recently with a student who made day 2 of the mystery bounties at the WSOP, and the mystery bounties are obviously very significant. There are 6 buy-ins, and we ran a bunch of sims, and I wasn't surprised, but it was remarkable how much flatting happens in those spots where big stack opens in early position, you've got a big stack as well, but there's people behind whose bounties you can win. But in this case, obviously, that's not the case.
Yeah, this is a spot that I thought I played well. In fact, I can't entirely remember what's about to happen here. So, pretty decent flop for me and my range, I would say. He has the lower cards, but obviously I've got the other pairs, the good jacks and whatnot. I've gone for an overbet. What do you think about that?
Interesting. That wouldn't have been my chosen line, to be honest. I'm probably more likely to go something around the 35% mark. But I guess, you're immediately bringing the idea of winning the bounty into play, which is interesting. You could probably still achieve that with a 2/3 pot bet. But I suppose the danger is always that you chase away, a pair of 8s or a pair of 9s. Now, Dara, that would have to stick around for at least one bet.
Yeah, in our book we talk about how like sizing to try and get people in over 3 streets. If you start off with 10 to 12% of the effective stack on the flop, so that would suggest like 9 to 10 big
blinds.
Just over half, which seems fine. Yeah, I'd just be worried that he's going to start folding stuff like 8s now. It's slightly noteworthy too that we do have the king of spades, so we're blocking spades and making it less unlikely they'll get there if he does happen to have spades. So yeah, I would have just probably gone for 10 big blinds.
As played, what do you think he's calling with when he does call with the overbet? Because this informs my turn decision.
Yeah, it's interesting that he decides to flat this one. Obviously, you have told a story of pretty significant strength now. I presume he has a jack a lot of the time, unless he flatted a hand like Queen's pre, in which case your sizing is brilliant and you have a very good chance of getting him here for a lot of chips. But, 8s, 9s, 10s still might stick around. Flush draws would certainly still maybe think that they could stick around, particularly if they have a backdoor to go with, which they almost always will on that particular texture. I think, but I think, probably an ace jack hand looks like the most likely right now.
Yeah, like it's interesting. Like when you look at solid responses to overbets, like flush draws just never fold because the stacks are deep enough, and pairs mostly don't fold either. Like something like ace 5 or ace 3 is probably supposed to hang on even to your size. But in practice, I don't think people would necessarily do that. I think that you may have folded out a lot of one pair hands now. I kind of disagree that this is even a brilliant size against queens, because like we're going to get queens in over 3 streets anyway. Yeah, I think just our whole range kind of just wants to bet to go geometric the whole way, basically, and get him in over 3 streets.
You won't my turn decision then, because I was very much in this is a king jack and ace jack. Probably wasn't thinking about queens, to be perfectly honest, or like a king queen of spades type of spot, or a king queen of clubs type of spot. So I actually thought this was a good spot for a turnover bet, because
we can see 2 of the kings as well.
Oh, of course he's not got a king queen of spades. I've got that.
Oh my god, this is yeah.
Okay, so really like going for it here. I guess if you got him off a flush draw, you don't even want it. There's no real hand you want to get to fold there.
That doesn't give any part of his range a difficult decision. I guess except top pair, but like top pair, you're getting in over 2 streets anyway. Folding a flush draw is nice. Like you fold with roughly 20% equity, but you don't get the bounty either. Yeah, I think with this being a bounty in particular, I just think
the fact that it's a bounty was also colouring my decision making generally, which is that I've just been finding overbets works incredibly well in bounty tournaments, especially early on, especially at this stake level.
They kind of have to have something though. Like it's and if they have something, do you not think they're just going to call three smaller bets anyway that gets them in over 3 streets?
I do now, but at the time I thought I was very smart.
Okay.
Well, let's actually dig down a bit deeper into that idea, because Barry, you've highlighted something there about this propensity to go for over bets, and it actually working maybe reasonably well for you at certain other points in time. I've actually played a decent amount of poker against you, usually on a Sunday in these majors, and I have to say, your image to me is wild. Most likely they are in PKO tournaments. Obviously when we've had the Chip Race series and Slobber Knocker series, which by the way, you've won pretty much every time we've had them. And I mean, you've won the leaderboards, not just like one random tournament. You have had this sort of maniacal, rampant, aggressive, big bets, loose sort of image. And I wonder if, in doing so, you have tapped into an exploit against the Unibet player pool. What I would say is, like, in a hand like that, you actually have the goods, and you actually have the sort of board where it doesn't necessitate anything kind of overly fancy. As Dara said, you could just sort of play it as a 3 street, get in, bet 9 bigs, bet 20 something bigs, and then have a nice little 40 big blind, 60% shove on the river or whatever that would have been. But I don't know, maybe your overall image, would you agree that
I would completely agree.
Yeah.
No, I'm not having this. I completely disagree. Like, I think we saw an exploit there too. He exploited himself, basically. Like, the guy folded something which was willing to put more chips in the pot, but just folded to the overbet. And also, like, I don't think Barry's going to do this with bluffs very often. So I think he's very
okay.
I have started doing it with I've started doing it with my bluffs now.
I started doing it, but I still think you're going to be on the bluffing.
Because of the previous video that the three of us did on this very topic, where I got manhandled by Dara into sort of explaining why I'm not doing this with bluffs. So I am doing this with bluffs now. But no, I much prefer David's analysis on the Phil Helmuth of 25 euro.
No, that's definitely not what I said. All I said was that
no, too late.
I do think that your image is very loose as somebody who does play against you. When I spot you at my table, I'm a bit like, okay, Barry's a little wild, and he's very aggressive, and he goes for those bounties for sure. If it's a PKO, he's going for them. So I don't think it was particularly well played hand, but I do accept that I think stylistically you are, to my mind, as someone who's not seeing all your whole cards, playing in a very loose, aggressive style these days. And I don't know, you said at the beginning of this video that you're having a bit of a break-even patch, and maybe you are overdoing it a little, and we're going to be able to see that through a variety of hands here today. We'll have to watch some more hands. We won't just base it on one, but
yeah, like you sometimes hear people talk about overbetting like it's like it's always amazing poker, and people who do overbets are taking the game to the next level. But actually, like, once people work it out, overbets are pretty easy to play against. If somebody's overbetting on their way towards value, then you just fold a lot, and if they're bluffing too much, you just call them down a lot. And it's actually the one probably bet size that makes it most difficult to exploit your opponents, unless they're absolutely terrible. Because in the previous example we saw, like, he didn't really give much of the guy's range a difficult decision. If he had something like pocket eights, yeah, maybe he can call one and then he folds the turn. It's very easy. If he has a flush draw, he's not getting the odds on the turn, so he folds. So, like, there's no hand really that you're giving a difficult decision to.
This can be a rough video. I can.
You're going to edit all this out, Barry, right?
Let's catch up with this one. So I see here you've gone for kind of a small 3-bet out of position, which I would have definitely gone bigger in this one. I think he's made it maybe 2 point something X, and you've just kind of tripled that.
Yeah, that's right.
So I probably would go bigger. So you kind of like 3.3X in the last hand in position, and now you've gone smaller out of position. I definitely reverse that as a rule.
Yeah.
So I think I'm about to underbet, which means I think I'm about to bet pot.
Well, this board is
okay on this board.
Yeah, this board is obviously an overbet board. Like, overbet boards are like boards with no high cards typically, although there are some ace high boards that there are some overbets on as well. And then no straight draws. No straights are possible, but lots of straight draws. And on this board, it's like, infinite straight draws and gutters and double gutters, etc., etc. The fact that there's 2 cards of the same suit means we probably normally what happens is on a board like 9-7-4 rainbow, you see overbets, but on 9-7-4 flush draw, you don't see overbets. You see like 80% of pot. So I suspect a solver would want to bet about 12 big blinds here, but yeah, this is definitely more defensible than the last hand, because there's lots of draws that can pay us off here and lots of worse hands.
Yeah, I have to say for myself here, a 3/4 pot would have been exactly where my brain was going, but I don't hate pot either. I think pot is
I never bet pot. I always make it 3/4, but I guess I must have like had some decisions on other tables or something that was just go for pot. But either way, So this is the interesting decision. So
Well,
would you
I
go
don't
on?
think we can get away. Our hand is too strong, so I wouldn't be
No.
checking it over. And I think what you actually can do on that particular card is a small sizing, because you do have the King of Hearts in hand, so that it comes great. If it doesn't come, also kind of great because maybe just in case he has the Ace of Hearts in hand. But I think usually in this spot, I slow down, but not slow down to check. I almost go like a third now. I think again we can get his stack in with maybe 16, 17 bigs here, and then the rest on the river, and that's probably what I would have gone for.
My actual logic was it was less about being concerned that this is obviously this completes a lot of hands that now pull ahead of us. I actually just thought this was a really good card for him to bet, so I thought I'd let him do that.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree with that, but I'm interested to hear what Dara thinks here.
I don't mind that logic actually, because like we have so much of our range that wants to check down. Like if we have just like random ace king or something, we're probably not going to keep barreling. And I think we do want to protect that sort of range, and it is a very good card for him. I think it's very tempting for him to bet as a bluff. I think if we check, all of the hands that are going to call our bet are probably going to bet themselves anyway.
Okay.
And by checking, we can also get some bluffs.
So we keep in the kind of like 10 jack or maybe like
Yeah,
the
exactly. I think 10 Jack would be very tempted to bet now, thinking, well, I've only got a gut shot. Yeah, so I think he's going to bet a wider range than he will call if checked too.
I suppose
Like,
my logic, just to go against that slightly, although it looks like you're going to be proven right here, is that whatever he was willing to call a pot size bet on the flop with, I can't imagine a 1/3 or slightly above 1/3 bet is likely to put him off. And we can just keep massaging this pot and get ourselves to quite a nice stack to pot ratio for the river. But as played.
So
yeah,
what do you think?
like on that, like you say that, and that might be true of humans, but like solvers will full part their range uh to everything, like
Sure.
but then that requires, for example, a human to hang on with a hand like ace four, for example, which probably is actually supposed to call our pot size bet on the turn, but then on the flop, but then when we bet the turn, go, okay, well, I only have a four, so now I fold. But yeah, no, it's a tricky spot because the fact that it's PKO changes the strategy slightly, and also the fact that we're out of position and we made this really weird small three bet.
Do you call a raise at this point?
Um,
Um,
ooh, I could definitely see
I've got,
myself going either way, depending on
good. I'm glad you said that.
whether I think he's the type who, if he has a draw, won't fold on the turn, or if he has a draw and misses, will bomb the river as a bluff.
Yeah. From to get back to like the theme of exploits and population reads and so on, I've just found that it's so much easier to get the money in when there's more cards to come, and it's so much more difficult to, for example, to induce a bluff on the river, but we might get a draw to call
Yeah,
on the turn. So I believe I'm no. So
yeah, I could definitely see that.
I quite like the shove. I appreciate it. Oh, that's very unlucky. And that's very lucky. But I would agree. I think it is a kind of a could go either way situation, and maybe in that spot you pick up on what you've noticed about this particular player on the day, because you don't have much more to go on Unibet because no hoods, of course. But I certainly don't mind the shove there, and obviously a bit unlucky to run into the seven, but yeah, you did have a backup plan.
yeah, okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, yeah. While we were talking, I just ran this quickly in GTO Wizard. Obviously, again, it's different because it's a PKO, but GTO Wizard does go smaller on the flop, as I suspected. It goes 75% of pot. Interestingly, on the turn, it does actually lead, but it checks some kings that don't have the heart. So it kind of splits its range between betting when it does have the heart and not betting when it has.
And does it bet smaller, Dara, like I would have gone for, or does it keep going quite big?
It goes half pot basically.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
Essentially, it's just sizing geometric. I think half pot gets us in on the river for half pot two, roughly.
Very good. Well, there's a very handsome person who just arrived at the table. Anyway,
We might get an insight to where this this wild image of mine has been cultivated. With
I noticed he's brought a lot of chips as well. He must be very good.
This is the €100 Fight Club. Plays a little differently to the €25 game in that I've generally found it's been way tighter. In fact, it almost plays like I'd say more like a normal vanilla tournament than a PKO in my experience, compared to the €25 PKO. And then I'm obviously the short stack at the table. What are you doing with Ace Jack off to begin with in these spots?
Personally, I just shove. There's 6.42 out there. We can get called because of the bounty by worse hands. The hand plays badly as a flat, I think, and doesn't play amazingly as a normal raise either. We're going to miss 2 flops out of 3. People are going to be hunting our bounty. So yeah, I think I just shove. Take my.
Oh wow, okay. No, I did not do that. I thought this was a good spot for a raise because our hand's got good blockers, but mostly played as a bluff. I think that's what I did anyway.
Let's have a look. You do go for the small raise,
which I would do on the button with my values, the smaller size.
Interesting to see the responses. I assume we're going for a raise fold here if someone was to show.
I am going for a raise fold at this stage, yeah.
That's okay. Okay, it's kind of a tricky one now, 3 ways. Like Dara pointed out, they're bounty hunting you.
Yeah, I don't think I'm getting anyone to fold on a flop like this if they've got any piece of that flop.
Yeah, it's very hard to miss this flop completely.
Yeah.
With the
and that's what I'm thinking. It's
as a general rule when there's 2 cards between like 8, 9, 10, two cards of 8, 9, 10 Jack, that just hits so many hands.
Yeah. So I think it's going to fold around to me.
I guess we're looking to get it in here. Oh, okay. I thought it was going to get checked to us. A little awkward, but we got to assume Ace Queen and Ace King would have put more chips in the pot themselves, either by 3-betting the original opener or by shoving once you 3-bet and it flats, and then it's actually a really cool spot for a back raise with Ace King. So, or Ace Queen or Ace King. So, like obviously Ace 9, Ace 8, deuces, 9s and 8s are not great for us, but I'm not sure we're going to love too many more cards. So maybe we just have to stick it in here. It's going to be, I just don't think there's enough behind that we can't just put it in. I don't think we're going to like any river really. So
yeah, if we call it, we're going to have half pot let back, and it's not. I don't think we can fold top pair. So
see at this point, I thought I was in a way ahead, way behind situation where I feel like I've got the best 1-pair ace. Like I don't think there's Ace King or Ace Queen there.
Yeah,
and I think if I get it in now, I'm just getting called by sets 2-pair or a draw.
You don't think like an Ace 10 is going to just...
Ace 10 is the only hand I reckon I'm
okay.
getting a lot.
You say way ahead, way behind, but like, does that mean if he shoves the river, you're going to fold?
We're about to see. We're about to see in a moment.
3-1.
Yeah. A not completely irrelevant point in this one though is by shoving, we do get Rocket 147 off a lot of his equity, which if he's in there with open ender, he can't actually call anymore. We shove, so it's not. We could be getting him out of a lot of hands, which mightn't be a bad thing either.
But just for the record, at this point, I thought I had the best of it.
I mean, you usually do, yeah.
I think
it kind of doesn't matter whether you do or not, though, because I don't think we're folding getting 3-1 on the river. So, like, if he has the best hand, he's going to bet the river. We're going to call and we're going to bust. So we kind of just don't care about that part of the game tree. All we're worried about is, well, what if he has a worse hand? Are we more likely to get it in now or on the river?
Yeah, and he also wants that bounty of yours. So he may well make a looser call than he should.
Yeah, I think he could definitely call off a draw, like just because of the bounty, and he's also getting 3-1 when you shove. So
speaking of shoves,
so Rocket 147 still in the tank here, does put it in. Oh well.
Now this is gross because This could be just him deciding, oh, I can't call with my Jack 10, but I can shove.
Yeah.
We do have to call it off, I think, but it's
Yeah,
not. We're not loving
we're
life.
getting 4-1 now, so it's like.
Yeah, I remember this hand well because I announced whilst I was playing to myself, there's like I'm pretty certain I'm fucked here, but at the same time, if I fold, then I'm just
You can't fold, like, even
very
if,
exploitable.
yeah. I mean, okay, well, 9.
You were kind of doomed once you 3-bet and that flop came down, and you decided to check, and the ace came. Like that sort of spelled your
Yeah, and
your end there.
not to be results based, but obviously the shove pre was working.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's really important here is that we think about kind of maybe the threshold for which we're willing to 3-bet, squeeze, shove. And I think normally it's going to be in the maybe low 30 big blinds with hands like ace, jack, ace, queen, maybe a king, queen suited, those types of things. But when we have this bounty idea where, they're supposed to call off lighter to try and get our bounty, I think that can go all the way up to 40. Maybe it goes above 40, Dara.
Yeah, I must admit,
No, it does. It does. Yeah. Like, I think you can definitely shove like 50, 60 big blinds in those spots. Because you can just get called by worse because of the bounty, basically.
that's definitely something that's not in my game at the moment. 40 big blind shove in a PKO is not something, unless it's like a very gambly or low stakes PKO with a strange dynamic. That's not part of my game, so that's I to add. This is a non-PKO. This is a 10 spot. This is the nightly €10 major on Unibet. So we're doing the rounds with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
This seems like a really easy complete. Are you looking for a reason to raise here at all before we continue?
Deeper, maybe it would be more interesting against everybody. Deeper at these depths, I think just calling seems great. It's like a nice hand to actually see a flop with for cheap.
Yeah, like this is multi-way, and the thing that changes multi-way versus heads up is heads up we 3-bet polar, so that this might fit into the bottom part of that, but heads up we just go much more linear with our 3-bets, or sorry, multi-way, particularly 4-way, which this is going to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we just flat all our weaker suited aces and kings and suited connectors, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, well played so far. Okay, pick up the gutter here. Nobody wants it, but yeah, I might go a little larger if I'm going to bet.
I quite like this. I think
but it's nice. I like the idea in this.
You're mostly just folded. You like. I don't think they're going to fold anything to most sizes unless we overbet, and we're not going to overbet because it's 4-way. So I think like we're just folding out stuff like we can definitely fold out ace 9, that kind of stuff. And I think it does set us up to bluff the river as well. Because when they don't raise, they kind of cap themselves.
We might get 6s and 7s to fold.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's quite a lot of hands you can get to fold even for the small size. Because particularly if you're this guy who has called Gigolo Dwarf, because he's got to worry about the other 2 players behind.
Yeah, this is this one I felt pretty good about compared to the free hands that I bollocksed up previously. Dara and I have been looking at multi-way pots for the last year or so in various capacities. So I do know that you kind of need if you're going to bluff, it needs to be something that could make the nuts, and small betting actually puts the most pressure on people. Hence my my overbetting in the first hand not being particularly.
Yeah, no. When I said I would go bigger, I wouldn't have gone a lot bigger, but I might have gone like 3.5, 4 big blinds. But 3 has got you to 3-handed here, and the poker gods have been kind.
Yeah. I think I think I picked this hand out just for the. Obviously, I'm not folding at this point.
Sizing's really interesting now because obviously it checked through on the flop. So and this run out doesn't really feel like it hit anybody. So it's kind of like 2 guys hanging on with something. Maybe pocket pairs below the kings.
Felt like 8x, pocket 9, something like that.
Yeah. Now you've gone kind of on the larger size there. I think I would have gone sort of smaller just because I would have made exactly the hands you said, my target hands, and thought, my line just looks quite strong here. Betting twice looks kind of 2 pairish, or at least maybe an okay king. So, if we want.
Oh, maybe I was getting greedy then. I was kind of thinking like a 9s or a 10s might have called that.
What do you think,
I
Dara?
think they
You
might.
mentioned
I think they might do. Yeah, the four is a relatively innocuous looking card, so
Yeah.
yeah. Like
Yeah, I mean, I've got a
I don't
really
mind.
well disguised hand as well.
Yeah, one thing we talk about actually in Beyond GTO is that often people will choose the smaller size, thinking, well, that always gets called, and therefore it's better. But of course, that's not the equation. Like if you bet 1/3 pot and you always get called, and you're only going to get called, say, 60% of the time if you bet 2/3 pot, you're still betting on. You're still better off betting 2/3 of pot because 60% of 2/3 is more than 100% of 1/3. Um, so yeah, I don't mind the size. I think we can get called still by those types of hands.
Very good.
So this is one of the hands I'm dreading showing you. Now there's a dynamic at play here, which in game I felt I made the right decision, but we'll see what you think. So dynamic is this is you can't see it because it's not in this screen, but this is a €100 title fight again, or it might be
It's
the
slobber
slobber
knocker.
knocker. Yeah, €100 slobber knocker, and it's been playing somewhat tight. Except for the guy who's Yo Soy unit, he's been very aggressive. Now, whenever he's shown up with that, whenever it's got to showdown, he's had something. So he's not wild, loose aggressive, but when he's got something, he's very, very aggressive. The play in the small blind has been very, very quiet, and must have won his bounty at the very, very start because I never saw how he got a bounty. But so I had a kind of a very aggressive image of this player and a very tight image of this player.
No,
He's not a small blind.
Yeah, just on the subject of screen name reads as well. Anytime somebody has nit in their screen name, they're not a nit.
Yeah. And I make I make you fold something or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Never bluffing. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the same logic, is the player who's called Monster Dong, does he not have a?
Of course you went there.
I had a theory about this because they always say like if someone's got a really flash car, then they've got a small body part. Like, what about like a successful porn star? Because like
They just have like a little smart car.
Yeah, are they supposed to drive a Fiat 500? They've got money. They should be able to have a flash car as well.
If they're a male porn star, we are going off topic here, but if they're a male porn star, I'm pretty sure they're not very well paid, so they're probably walking to work.
Right, okay. Well, I'd rather say at Beefer, which is the average.
How have we gone down this road?
I don't know.
How has it come to this, lads? A bunch of middle-aged guys.
Dara, David went with Monster. Okay, so the first thing. So, like I said, very aggressive player. I think very tight player. I was quite I was not suspicious of this. I was suspicious of this. What are we thinking?
Yeah, well, like it is a flat end of the day. Like if he is really tight and he's sitting there with aces, kings, or queens, or ace king, is he not likely to go, great, we go again? Or you think he's actually someone who might flatten ace king or flat a pocket queens or jacks?
I think he's flattened something of value. Put it that way. I don't think he's.
I agree with that.
I don't think he's in there with a 7-5 suited or something just to see a flop.
Well, I'll put it two ways. Like jamming doesn't seem awful if your reads are spot on that, our three better is loose. So there's a lot of raise folds from him. And our other guy is tight, but he's also like not going to not four bet aces and kings. So, how often does he have a hand that dominates us? Maybe not too likely one that calls. So maybe it's, flip against him. Maybe he's got the pocket tens or something like that, pocket jacks. But equally with those same reads that you now possess, you could proceed more cautiously and take a flatting line. Like your hand's a pretty lovely hand actually to play in position. Even when you don't flop a pair, you're going to flop a flush draw a lot or a straight draw with overcards a lot, or that kind of stuff. So with those reads, you can take those reads into the post flop situation as well. It feels like it could go either way type of situation for me. Dara, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he could go either way. Like I have a question for Barry, which is like Barry says he's flatting value, but like, what do you think he does with say pocket nines or pocket tens? Do you seriously think he folds those?
last. You and I have a different definition of value. No, I consider that to be that like the value range. Just
But
I'd say
what do you think he
nine.
does with nines or tens?
Oh, I think he flats.
He flats, yeah. Okay, so he's got like hands like nines and okay. What's he going to do with a hand like say king queen suited or ace jack suited?
I can see where we're going with this. Okay, good point.
Like it just seems like we're in great shape against the flatting range, and there's 20 big blinds out there waiting
Yeah.
to be won. And the other guy is also going to be worried about the tight guy behind, if he's paying attention at all. So yeah, I think we actually like often in poker you have like all the decisions feel terrible and you just pick the least bad one. But I think both flatting and shoving here have a lot of merit, and it's just a question of which one we prefer.
Okay, so we've decided to flat, which for the purposes of the hand history review is the best one because we get to now analyze some more decisions. It's gone check, check, and you've decided to check back with the nut flush draw, 2 overs, backdoor straight draw, which is interesting in and of itself. So let's maybe before
I've kind of got a thing at the moment of that I was as Dara knows, because Dara and I have been working on something where I've kind of discovered that you don't always bet your absolute best draws as bluffs, and sometimes you keep them back. So I've been overdoing that a little bit. I don't even want to do the rest of this hand.
I don't think we have much value here, like on this flop. So I don't mind checking as well. It's also quite deceptive. A lot of players will just never put us on a flush draw. Like our hand still has showdown. Like it could be the best hand even without hitting. Like Yoi Soyonit could just be completely at it, which who knows what.
What does the presence of a paired board in what direction does that swing you generally with being aggressive or not being aggressive? Because I could see the case for both. Like for me, I think it was like an internal nittiness that maybe for paired board better be careful. So I didn't bet, but I could see the case for betting now.
Yeah, heads up, we should be more likely to bet because it's less likely somebody's hit. But when we're up against two players, the chances that somebody is hit or has something already before the flop are twice as high. So I think that pushes us the other way. So
Can I throw an idea out here that I think I would have done in game, to be honest? And that's with 26 bigs in the middle. I might have bet very, very small, basically thinking, I don't mind getting my hand in here. You know, okay, disaster if someone has pocket tens, but against pretty much almost all the other hands, I'm going to have more than the right price. So I don't mind betting really small and then getting it in if someone jams. But similarly, if I bet really small, I might get myself all the way to the river here for that price.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea as well. Like, I think we're kind of in the same spot as we were pre-flop. Like pre-flop, I said both decisions are actually very appealing, and I think both decisions have a lot going for them. You've given the reasons why the small bet is appealing. We can definitely fold that equity. We can effectively get to see the river for free, or not for free, but it'll check to us on the turn. And then the other thing is. When we do bet, obviously we massage the pot for when we hit as well. So yeah, like I think there's two good options here, and our hand is definitely strong enough to get in on the flop. Like that's not in question. We could even get it in against something like King Jack of clubs, and then we're really laughing. So yeah, I think either option's fine.
Okay, I'd be curious if Dara will want to work on any books with me after.
Always the risk when we do these long form.
Well, this is very appealing to me because I was actually worried that Barry was getting too good to play the role that he's traditionally played of being the person.
No, I've managed to maintain the everyman village idiot thing. So
okay, so we have a lead out here and a raise. Okay, so Barry, you were always concerned that this guy was sort of somewhat tight. Obviously, the hand that really screams danger, danger is pocket tens here, and basically we're fucked if that's what's out there. But it's also very possible that he has the same hand as us, but we've got the free roll.
I didn't even think about that, to be perfectly honest.
King Queen is a possibility, but maybe not a massive one. That might just decide to flat here. Yeah, like obviously I am worried about the tens, but like, wow, look how much hand we have.
We just have too much equity here. Like we just can't fold really now. So yeah, like I think we're going to be beaten a lot here, but we do, even when we're behind, we have so much equity. And then if we're ever ahead, if it's ever just like King Queen or or even the same hand, then we have the free roll.
Yeah, I felt like the only hands I was ahead of were King Jack of clubs, which
And again,
sort of,
I think based on what you've told us, like it wouldn't really been character for this player to raise that on the turn. They'd probably just call.
yeah, possibly. And the only other thing I thought I was possibly ahead of was King Queen.
Well, the thing is, if King Jack suited is possible, then King Queen suited is possible as well, clearly. And yeah.
But then I'm not sure if this guy's cold calling a 3-bet with King Jack of any sort.
That's what I'm. Yeah, I think King Queen
Yeah.
is much more likely than King Jack. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but to be perfectly honest, I was skeptical either of those were in the hand. I was just trying to put him on something that I beat at this point. I still felt that neither of those hands were particularly likely.
So are we going to see you let this one go?
So the thing colouring it was I also felt like there was a chance that maybe this guy had some clubs sort of. Well, I was probably just making that up in my head.
we're dead against tens, but like we've equity against everything else.
Well, we did let it go, and are we going to get to see the two hands, which I'm desperate to know?
Sadly, no. No, we don't see. And unfortunately, Unibet doesn't have the show feature. So the only way I could find out was that super user account that you guys let me have a look at.
Oh yeah. I was wondering why you were asking for that the other
day. Given he went check shove on the river, do you think my read was slightly more correct, or do you think he's got? So do you think he could? Do you think he could be doing this with?
I think on this river he shoves everything he raises on the turn. So
yeah, I think in a lot of worlds it is the same hand as yours, but I don't think it's a worse hand than yours anymore.
Right. No, agreed. King Queen is even a bit unlikely now. So
that's tick 2 for barriers to Phil Helmuth of Unibet tournaments. Dodge bullets, I think there.
Well, potentially you did, but there were a variety of interesting decision points, both pre and on the flop and on the turn in that one. So yeah, cool hand to look at from all sides.
So I feel like this was I know for a fact this is the €25 Battleground. This is the same night, and I think this hand was within about 6 minutes of that hand, which marginally coloured the way I approached this one compared to the last one.
So sorry, just because I wasn't paying full attention here, is this just a single raise pot, or is this a?
Yes.
So he's opened under the gun and you flatted button.
It'd be the smallest of small 3-bets if there was only 6.25 big blinds in the pot and it was somehow.
Yeah. So just going back to the pre-flop, I might be inclined to raise a bit more with. I might be inclined to raise a bit more on the button with King Queen off. But with King Queen suited, I'm actually wanting other players to call behind in PKO situation. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds like a good plan.
Very much so, yeah.
And just because I can't resist having a rebuttal because Dara was being very smart alecky there. It is possible that one of the two players to our left has jumped in subsequently to the table, having been seated there, and we're actually the opener into that guy's big blind. That was the only thing I was.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
He's a meanie, isn't he, David?
I know.
You guys drag me around a bench. Show me these nonsense signs.
So
big sizing here. So he's got 80%.
Excuse me, I'm used to coaching guys who are playing Tritons, not the lads who are playing the fucking Battleground.
What is there something wrong with the Battleground on Unibet?
Okay.
Right. So under the gun opens. We have got a nice open ender. We've got 2 overs. We've got a backdoor flush draw. What are you thinking?
Get it in.
I have no problem getting it in here. We're just going to have loads of equity when called, and he probably does have some bet folds.
I mean, raising is clearly better here. We want to get the hand in now. No matter what he has, we have equity and we can win his bounty. We don't want a club to roll off on the turn, and that'll kill our action if he doesn't have clubs. And we can get some ace highs to fold as well. If he just has the random ace 8 suited.
Well, what happened here, Dara, is I was misapplying a lesson that you and I have been talking about recently, and I had to preserve my pair outs. You're going to get sick of me saying that.
Oh no. Well, the run and throw is very favorable for you.
Okay, well.
Oh wow.
So he pots it. I still think I've got shitloads of equity on this flop on this turn in the way that I probably should have in the last hand. So you getting it in?
Like this is probably one of those spots. Like if he's got ace jack, ace jack's not obviously ideal because obviously that's one of our outs. But like it's unlikely that he doesn't have an overcard with a pair if that is what he has.
Yeah.
You know what against even a hand like pocket jacks here, we're gonna have 40% or something incredible like that, 38%. I don't know if there's any point in. I don't think there's any fold equity left, so I don't mind flatting again. If we
I think actually, I feel like when you have no fold equity, there's kind of no point raising because you're not getting into fold basically.
But I can win his bounty.
You can win his bounty, but like, is he going to check fold the river just because a diamond comes or an ace or a 9? I don't think so.
I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I've seen worse happen.
Really? Yeah, but you get to, but more importantly, you get to keep those 17 bigs if you miss here and they're just left with king high.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the bigger factor. It's like if you just miss, like you just have king high, so you can easily fold. But if you hit, I don't think like he'd be getting such an amazing price in the river.
Yeah, I felt guaranteeing the bounty was a bigger.
I think you're getting the bounty anyway because like he's potted on the turn. I don't think he's bluffing, and I think if you just call, he'll bluff the river anyway.
The only one I'm thinking there is that like if he has the other flush, the other king queen flush draw or something like that, then maybe he's giving himself a chance to get away. But it has to be very specifically like that, and he also has to choose not to bluff it on the river.
Yeah, and like I think that's the perfect. Like I think what happened perfectly illustrates it. Like if he shoves the river, you can just fold and you preserve those big blinds. You know, he might not even bet. He might not just like his hand enough to bet, and you might save yourself the money that way as well.
Very exciting hand. But like I said, I've been trying to get a snapshot of my overall game, so I included some smaller pots. So I've got twice as many chips as everybody on the table. I've literally just won a bounty. The tournament started. I want to play every single hand at this point, and everyone's playing quite tight in the 5 or so minutes that we've been going. So I thought this was a perfectly okay flat. You okay with the flat?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it seems fine. It'd be too loose if this wasn't a bounty, but I think in a bounty it's fine.
Okay, so pot is 6.7 bigs. He checks to you. You decide to check back. Okay, might have bet that one small myself, but you know, either way is okay. I remember you making the point to me, and this actually harkens back to another video, probably the last one, where the reason you flat 8-6 suited is because you want to bring bounties into play, and win another bounty potentially, and that's why you're splashing around. Let's call it a little bit. So checking the flop there when you've made a pair, obviously you don't want to call a check raise that much, but I think you still probably have to, but that won't be as nice a situation. But I think you want to start building some semblance of a pot, seeing as the whole point was to bring the bounty into play.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, there are some pots where I just think this isn't a bounty winning pot.
Okay.
Yeah, and and then you just play it normally. Yeah,
I play it a bit more like a vanilla.
I actually think that's a very good way to think about it. I think people over focus on bounties, and like you're in here because you're trying to win a bounty. You just hit middle pair, like you're not winning a bounty now. So
it's only if a non-heart 8 comes on the river that I'm
a normal hand. So
for comparison, then Dara, like if this was a king 7-5, then that's the one we should look to bloat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we have 8-6. Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, because we want to make sure that if we do hit, we can get all the chips. Yeah. Like we basically just have a small hand, so small hand, small pot.
Okay, well, I think there's a reasonable chance that we're behind, but obviously too much hand right now to fold. Very interesting river decision coming up. I feel obviously a flush completer, and a okay, nice. We picked off 7s. I was going to say I think he's going to have 9s through queens a lot here, but obviously he also has 6s and 7s maybe in there, some frequency, and we got him.
I just felt that the king was sort of a good bluffing card. He should have bet on the flop really. The heart was also a good bluffing card. I'm surprised 7s didn't check it down, actually.
Okay, I'm going to throw just an idea out there. I could be absolutely wrong, but it's something I've observed, and maybe I'll be misappropriating it, but it's something I've observed. Is there anything here, Dara, to min clicking or very small raising the turn here to buy ourselves the cheaper showdown against the hands that are 9 through queens, you know, at the risk of losing a slightly bigger bet to, I suppose, exactly this one when sevens decide to go again for half pot, just because maybe there's fewer of those kinds of hands that would bet and actually more of the other. And at least if we raise it, you know, unless he has a king, he's kind of paralyzed and he didn't bet the flop with the king, so maybe he doesn't have it. And that sort of gets us to a cheaper showdown in a spot where we can't really fold.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think there's probably more like sevens, sixes. I think often, like, rightly or wrongly, nines or tens will actually bet the flop themselves, thinking, well, there's only one overcard.
Gotcha.
Whereas the sevens is worried about two overcards. I'm actually thinking a slightly different line, which is I think I would always call the turn with my hand because I think it's a pure bluff catcher, and the king is a good card, as Barry said. It makes it way less likely he has the king. But when he bets the river, I'd actually be tempted to raise and try and get him to fold nines or tens now. Because we would often play a lot of our strong value this way, and I don't think I think the way he's played the hand, he's very capped here. Probably the strongest hand he has is like queens, I guess. And
is there anything about our specific hand that makes you more inclined to do that? Like, for example, the fact that we block a set of eights, which is
yeah,
one of the value
I think I'm using the eight as a blocker there, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily do that with if I had 6-7 for a missed straight draw.
No, I wouldn't, because because I'm actually trying to get like sevens to fold. Well, I'm hoping he has sevens as well.
Yeah.
But I think calling is fine too. I think you actually play the hand fine. I think another advantage. I think the advantage of just calling the turn is you get him to try to bet. I think he should definitely check the river. But it's one of those spots where players, once they've started betting, they don't like to stop. Because you know, I hear it time and time again with my students, go, "Oh yeah, but if I check, he's going to make a big bet." It's like, well, no, he's not all the time. Like you weren't going to go big with 8-6 here. People have this fear that when they check, they're showing weakness, and now the guy's going to pounce on them when they have this type of hand.
Also, it's a very strong likelihood with 6-7 or a flush draw you to bet the flop.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
So, you know, for all the reasons we even talked about earlier, which is that it's in your advantage to bloat some pots here and maybe bring bounty into play at some point. So, you know, the amount of times you're going to have the flush here is very little.
I actually don't even like his turn bet, if I'm honest. Because there's only one card to come, and if he has the best hand, you know, Barry has like 6 outs probably with the two overcards.
And you certainly don't mind check calling the turn in his.
Yeah, I think check calling is fine. You similar to the earlier hand we talked about, where like you'll induce some bluffs that way as well.
So I evidently have the reputation of a complete fucking maniac. But hopefully, me folding the ace queen in the previous hand balance my game.
That's funny. I have quite a different impression of Barry, but yeah.
That's because you and I have spent so long talking about satellites.
And I've spent so long getting walloped by you in slobber knockers.
We have a chapter in a new book about how people overfold to all ends, and I was thinking about Barry when we wrote that.
Okay, so you've opened 3x under the gun playing effective or kind of 100 with the table, or maybe a little less than 100 with the table. We have a flatter from Fish Theory, and then we have a squeeze shove by, I want to say small blind. I think this is actually one of those examples of somebody having slipped in since. The guy chip slip, I think, just arrived mid-hand. So small blind shoving 90, and it's back on us. That is a lot of chips.
I think that's far too much to call.
Yeah, like obviously we call ace king and gamble it up.
Oh yeah.
But and ace queen just is so much less hand.
This looks like ace king.
This looks like ace king is kind of what I was thinking. Also, there's a population read thing here. Like if this was a €25 or below that I regularly play, I think I'm inclined to call Would you agree with the stake division there?
Having
Just because
played,
I've seen wilder
having played
things.
25s, I don't play anything lower than that. But having played some 25s, I do think you're right that there is a kind of a propensity the lower it goes with the PKOs, that people are in there gambling a bit more. So that's probably a good overall adjustment.
Yeah, I'd agree too. Yeah.
We're going to find out that Fish Fairy did not agree.
Oh wow, yeah.
Well,
See, this is why shoving ace king is actually good play, even for that many bigs, because
yeah.
you can get ace queen in, and like ace
Because
king's going to be hard to play after the flop.
I think it is, and from experience, I think a lot of people will go, "That's ace king. I'm going to call with pocket fours," and then if there's quite a bit of dead money already in the pot, it's kind of a win-win equity.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the PKO book, we talked about how you only need 46% equity to get all in first hand of a PKO. So it can be a spot where both players are actually right to get in their hand, even if one is a slight favorite.
Yeah, even if they can see each other's hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
More re-raise.
Small re-raise. Yeah, I mean,
Don't love these spots, to be honest. These always kind of fill me with trepidation. I don't think we can fold because it is too cheap, but I'm not loving life right now.
yeah,
Yes,
this is one of those spots I think where all the options feel kind of bad. So,
yeah,
but I think the least bad option is probably just call and hope to miss the flop.
Okay, well, so that's
I have no idea how this hand. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it went flop. Do you have any?
Never betting.
No, we're white flagging it on the flop, but now it gets a little tiny bit more interesting for sure.
We've almost no equity on the flop, so yeah. And when he checks, he should be just check calling and check raising a lot.
Yeah, we have to keep him honest for one here for sure.
Yeah, we have to.
Oh, well, that's worked out.
How is Barry on a side swing? He's running so well.
Look, if I fold the winner a lot.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we have to try and tempt him to get all of it with the bounty here. I think shoving is, even though like you might normally pick a number like 28 bigs here, I think we just stick 40 in to try and tempt him more so. Bit crap if he's got the pocket tens or pocket sixes, but what can you do? You gotta go for it here. Oh, you did go for
I did. I was about to make the case for a small click raise and get him to maybe bluff sometimes.
Okay.
Found the middle ground then for it.
You found the nonsensical middle ground. I also like David's line of just shoving and hoping he has like a 10, which is going to call because of the bounty, or he puts you on missed diamonds or something. But yeah, as it happens, he has a hand which is going to, but he was calling the shove as well. So
yeah,
probably even shoving himself. Well, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually,
yeah.
Okay, pocket tens feels like a flat, even though the villain has 31 here.
Yeah, I like flatting here. This is the kind of hand which doesn't mind people behind coming in as well.
No, and we didn't get a big blind in, so we are just heads up here. Obviously decent flop, but certainly one that interacts with his range as well.
That's what I was thinking. I think I picked this out because I'm mostly curious about what you were doing this flop to check to.
What's kind of interesting about these ones is like obviously ace king and ace queen have suddenly gone quite far behind, actually more behind than they might suspect. I don't hate the idea of a very small bet, but also checking seems okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all the options are on the table here. Well, we're never betting big. Yeah, it's small, better check, and I think both options are fine.
Probably not going to give him a free one second time out. We'll see what he does first. Yeah, perfect. Play it the same probably. Interesting if he springs some sort of move here now. Make life a bit complicated.
No, I don't think he does.
I'd actually go bigger here now, I have to say, on the turn.
You'd have gone like maybe 65.
Yeah, because I think like
we're just basically trying to keep the king queen in there, like keep the ace queen in there.
I kind of feel that they're going to call that size anyway.
No, I think you're right. Actually, on reflection, I think that's true.
And I think he's also hanging on with like nines and eights and all those hands as well. So I think I'm pretty sure we have the best hand now, so I'm just trying to focus on getting value.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
River
Nice.
check.
Yeah. I don't even know why I picked hand now.
I definitely pursue value against a kind of a king 10, queen 10, or maybe, you know, fives probably shouldn't call. But, well, I don't know. Like when they have to call with some amount of their pairs under, you know, tens, maybe they have to sprinkle in a little of everything. Do they, Dara? Or is it literally you go up in a linear way?
Yeah, I think I actually overbet the river and just try and make my hand look like
Yeah, I
a
like that.
misdraw.
I like that. You look
What,
like
to get
king
called by,
queen a
like,
lot.
Yeah, I played it against a very good player recently, and they surprised me on the river by overbetting this type of hand, and after they had checked the flop, and then I thought back and I thought, well, actually, they are kind of at the top of their range, and the way I played the hand, I'm very capped, so they can be fairly sure they have the best hand. So you know they can certainly use the size with bluffs, and try and get me to fold, but they can use it with their value as well and try and get sort of the disbelieving. Do you really have a hand because you checked the flop?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting idea to bring up here, Dara, because I think that there is a type of player, type of recreational player that will sort of fixate on the value of their own hand and only make a decision based on that. And so if you go small bet, they go, oh, it's not much more to see if my pocket sevens are good and they'll call it. But actually, there's a more sophisticated player, a smarter player who will always do exactly what your guy did there, which is go, oh, he's polarized himself to having king high here now, or something nuttier. Oh, and you know, H10 is quite nutty right now. But I quite like that. Like if you're up against a clever player, I think you can go like 1.5x pot here. And if you're up against a very weak recreational, I sometimes do milk them. I suppose that's just like judging the opponent.
Yeah, I think if you bet 2/3 pot here, even fives is going to call, because you'll just look at miss spades and king queen and go, yeah, I could be good. But against sophisticated players, as David says, I do actually like the overbet, because I think it's more likely to get paid off, and we do have the best hand pretty much always.
Yeah. And in a Unibet context here, 100 quid fight club, you know, in terms of the field size it gets and the standard is probably as tough a game as you'll find on Unibet. So probably is one of those spots to go for the assume your opponent's a bit more sophisticated.
So this is, I believe, this is the €10, not a PKO. First of all, what's your play with tens? I don't like bloating the pot particularly.
I don't like flatting.
Everything's been made very awkward by the 4x open.
It has been made very awkward by the 4x, yeah. I would definitely squeeze without the 4x.
Like there's 10 bigs in there and the opener covers us, the other guy doesn't. And he's been willing to call 4x off his 28, which is kind of weird in itself. Like if I had 45 bigs here, I'd just probably stick it in. But 66 feels like a lot.
It does, yeah. This definitely feels like one of the options, a spot where all the options kind of suck.
Yeah.
Again, I'd never even think to put 45 big blinds in if that was my stack size.
I mean, I'm pretty sure at equilibrium, this is actually a 3-bet call. Because
yeah, that's true too.
Like you're not going to be in great shape, obviously, but like just when you add in all the ace kings and ace queens and all that stuff, like that's going to be a bigger part of the range than the overpairs. And you know, if the guy ever bluffs, which you know he should be doing some of the time, with you know an ace five suited or whatever. But yeah, it definitely feels uncomfortable. And I can see the reasons for calling.
So, were I to raise, but not shove, like, what do you think the under the gun raiser has that he folds? Like, I get sometimes that this 4x bet. I mean,
you're saying he's under the gun, but it's 6-handed and one guy sitting out.
Sorry, it's just
so it's hijack. This is hijack against button.
Yeah,
I mean, I think he folds lots of like, you know, ace 9 suited, ace 8 suited, queen 10 suited, queen 9 suited, king jack off, all that stuff. Pocket twos.
Yeah. See, I mean, in the from personal experience, I just don't particularly see those being in his range. Whenever I see a bet like this, I see it as being a
because of the 4x. Okay, that's fair
yeah,
enough.
yeah. It's like I see this being kind of a strong hand that people find tricky to play, like
So ace queen or jacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like I was set mining for the most part. Put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I can see that. Yeah. Yeah. It all comes down to what we make of the 4x, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Although, having said that, I felt like I set mine in my actions on the flop would suggest
Yeah, that's
really
right there.
interesting. Oh, yeah. I was going.
You flirted with the 3-bet there.
I flirted with the raise, so okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like. Oh. Given we thought he had ace queen or jacks, this is interesting.
Oh.
Oh, Jesus. He never shows a queen, like.
No, he never shows a queen.
Right.
But the question is, like, he flatted 4 bigs of his 28 here.
Mm.
There is no hand that should do that, so he's already just into the game.
Well, this is true, yeah.
Into something
This
that's
is
kind of funky.
So I'd be very curious here, because this is an area where I've got a leak or I've ran badly. Because when I see something like this, I think my tens are miles ahead of this guy. Because I just don't think anyone would waste a set of
Unless
queens.
he's flatted aces and now he's panicked because the queens have come.
Yeah, possibly.
He's decided,
yeah,
there is
but
a queen out there, I want to rip this band-aid off quick.
Yeah, I would tend to think we're in good shape against the range overall, though.
Yeah, I would too.
I wouldn't be surprised to see something like 9s or 8s go, well, I don't think there's either of them have a queen, because the queen, two of them on the board.
Right. I think I was specifically putting him on a 9s type of hand.
Yeah, and then obviously diamonds are possible as well. If he has ace x of diamonds, he might just do this and go, well, I had the equity and I
so we're all in agreement then, but we're way ahead of this guy. But what are your thoughts on the initial raiser? And
yeah, it's horrible because it's.
Do we get him out? Do we get him out? Do we make him fold a worse hand, for example, if we get in? And has he got something? What's the likelihood that he's got something that's going to call?
I don't think
the likelihood's absolutely there, because he absolutely could play aces this way.
I mean, he could, yeah, but is he? If we shove, like, is he going to really just snap aces and go like, well, I guess neither of them had the queen?
Actually, just on that, are we better off flatting than shoving, just purely from a make it seem like we've a queen more often than not, just in case we can get him to fold jacks?
I think we can get him to fold jacks even by flatting. Like, if I'm
that's what I mean. Should we flat? To make that look
or by shoving. Like, if I'm sitting there with jacks, I don't think I'm calling either way.
Sure.
Like we have a difficult decision with tens, and like tens and jacks are kind of the same hand. And that's just one guy has shoved. So I think when the second player sticks it in, now your jacks just shrivel. You probably are going to have to side call kings and aces, and then he can obviously have the queen as well. But at the same time, I think he far more often just says nothing.
This was a horrible hand from the beginning. This is absolutely horrible.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why flatting as well just gets you into trouble so much post flop, because.
Yeah, so you do isolate, and then up pops the tournament. So you don't have to see what happens. Oh, that's very sad.
Wow, that's some shove on the flop.
Yeah, that's ambitious.
But I was happy with my eventual shove, because I really felt that.
Yeah, I think you worked it out well. That the guy just can't have a better hand, and yeah,
and actually, more often than he's going to show up with ace king, which is actually a really weird hand to see. He's going to have 8s and 9s, which we really want to have.
Well, the ace king actually speaks to what Dara said about somebody who's flattered a stronger hand then panics. I do see stuff like that quite a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So so like I said, I promise I don't play like some of those hands all the time. I have picked out a small sample of the hands that troubled me, or I felt like
that was a great selection of hands. They provided a lot of decision points and a lot of things that we debated as much as anything else. You know, even if your line was sort of not one that either of us liked, Dara and I often had different ideas on how to proceed. and indeed, obviously, we can bring in the solver, and we can bring in, you know, the Unibet exploits, if you like, the population tendencies that are good there, and you could debate those things till the cows come home. But no, like overall, I think that was a really interesting batch of hands, Barry.
Yeah, no, you pick great hands. I think lots of really interesting spots, and as David said, like we didn't even agree on what we would do. So, and solvers would probably take an even different approach. And it does show how juicy Unibet is.
Yeah. So next time, Barry, just if we're going to do one of these, can you be live on a Triton 15K at least, just so Dara doesn't have to lower himself?
Yeah, I do apologize.
We'll do a whip round and we'll get you into the first event at the next Triton.
At the very least, take out the 10 spot, please.
Yeah. I do apologize for subjecting Dara to the indignity of looking at the site that Ian is an ambassador for.
He loves looking at that site, but he loves looking at it with his own little avatar there winning all the chips.
Yeah.
Look, honestly, thank you so much, Barry. You know, it's always, and I've said this before during these ones, it's never nice to be the person who puts their head in the chopping block for these ones. And I've no doubt that if we pulled up a hand history of mine one of these days, I'm sure we could find an equal number of funky hands and tricky hands where we disagree as well. So thank you for being the one who always brings these to us and gives us the sort of blackboard from which to work.
Yeah, Barry, he's from Sheffield, so like, you know, he's used to pain.
Yeah, you should see the really bad ones that don't make it into the on the cutting floor.
These are the ones he's proud of, David. What are you saying?
Yeah, I'm gonna say. I'm like, well, the next queen, nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
It started off with Barry thinking, "Oh, I'm going to show these hands I played absolutely brilliantly," and sending the video by going, "Thank you for bringing these hands that you butchered, but at least in an entertaining and illuminating fashion."
Well, look, I'm not sure we were able to find a theme which fit with any one of your books. So I would just go and say, buy all the books, guys. If you're out there, just buy all the Barry.
Maybe I should finally read them.
What?
Maybe I should finally read the books.
Yeah, somebody came to the house actually to buy some books, and I said, "Which of the 5 books do you want?" And he goes, "I think you've written 6 books." We're losing count at this stage, unfortunately.
Well, I'm just happy to know that they're still coming to you and you're not going door to door, Dara.
Well, that's the next stage, you know.
Guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it out there as an audience. We like to do these ones every 3 or 4 months or so. I think it offers something a little bit different. Obviously, it's a bit more spontaneous and less prepared, but I think it gives an insight into what we would do given roughly the same amount of time as Barry has in game. As opposed to, you know, the other strategy segments where we've obviously had our solvers out and, you know, gone over the hand and thought about it deeply before we presented it. So I think these are very useful segments and a nice part of our overall strategy video repertoire, or, you know, box set, or whatever you want to call it. Barry Carter, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Get it, guys.
Cheers.